everybody. Thank you for joining our session. We will get started in just a minute, and this session will be recorded, and we will post the recording and the PowerPoint on the website later on. Can everyone hear me okay?
I can hear you, Kavya.
Thank you, Leslie. Wonderful. I'm seeing people slowly filter in. Today's session is just an hour. Because it's just an hour, even though we typically answer questions at the end of the session, today's session, unfortunately, we won't have enough time to answer any questions verbally. If you have some questions, you may include them in the chat, and one of our team members may be able to respond to you. But if you have any other questions and you want to be able to discuss it, we are doing a 2-hour Q&A session on Friday. So that session, you can come to us in person. It's going to be a little bit like office hours, and we're happy to chat with you at that session. If you attend today's session and you want to attend one more information session, we do have a session tomorrow in the Union Market area that you can fill out and register for on the form that was in the email. Wonderful. So due to lack of time, even though I'm only seeing around 16 people, 17 people on right now, and I know a couple hundred people registered, I think we should get started. So welcome to today's session. Today's session will focus on great streets, locally made, and emerging retail. So we have 3 grant programs that have come out on December 12th, and all 3 grant programs are anticipated to close on Friday, January 16th, exactly at noon. So one thing that I will recommend is if you're interested in applying for any of these 3 applications, I would recommend applying a few days in advance. That really protects you from any system crashes that might happen. And if things slow down towards the end of the day, this way you can submit your application and make sure that it's been received. So our 3 grant programs are Great Streets, Locally Made, and Emerging Retail. This year, we're expecting $2.5 million in funding available. We will hope that 22 to 30 grants will be dispersed for up to $90,000 in funding. Locally Made is $1.5 million in funding available. 4 to 10 grants are anticipated to be awarded, up to $400,000 in funding. So one thing that I will mention is that this is our biggest locally made year ever. We did not have locally made last year. And in previous years, we've only been able to provide a few grants for nowhere near as high as $400,000 in funding. So if you are a business interested in locally made, this is a very good year. Emerging retail. This is a newer grant program that has only been piloted last year. So this is our 2nd year that we're doing emerging retail. So there will be $200,000 in funding available, and we are hoping that 7 to 10 grants will be dispersed for up to $40,000. So if you haven't already looked at our notice of funding available or request for applications, please scan that QR code and take a look at the RFA. The RFA is incredibly, incredibly important in order to learn the ins and outs of our grant program. Everything that I discussed in this presentation will be in the RFA in further detail. It will include the scoring guide and really tell you all of what we're looking for. So I would really, really encourage you to read that at least 3 times and make sure you're double checking that before you submit your application to make sure your project is aligned with the goals of our grant. In order to be eligible for any of our 3 grant programs, you must be along the eligible corridors. So these corridors are legislated by the council members. They decide which areas are going to be part of the Great Streets corridors, and then we have created a corridor map so that way you can very easily go to our website, click on corridor map, and this screen will be pulled up. Then where it says find a DC address, you enter in your project address. So I recommend using a Chrome browser. That seems to be a very reliable browser in order to check your location information. And then you will receive a pop-up that shows, hey, I'm in the eligible boundaries, or no, you are not part of the eligible or abutting boundaries. In the application, you have to submit a screenshot showing that your project is within the eligible boundaries. Program goals. So every presentation, I always make sure to start with program goals because it is very, very important. This really aligns with the goals of the mayor and the deputy mayor, and you want to think about how your business is aligning with these goals. So we are hoping to invest in projects that transform and beautify our corridors, are already investing in emerging neighborhoods and continue to do so in new and innovative ways, are promoting locally made products and increase job growth. So I will say that if you're a business that is interested in applying for these grant programs, really, really, really think deeply about the program goals and think about, is your business actually transforming and beautifying our corridor? Or how can your business go forward in doing that? And then being able to describe that exact process in the application is very important. So the first grant that I will discuss today is Great Streets. So Great Streets is our biggest grant, and every year we receive over 150 applications, some years 200 applications. Last year we received about 200 applications and only were able to award 14. So as you can hear, it is a very competitive grant program. This year, again, we are hoping to award over 22 recipients, so a bit more than last year. So just for the general, Great Streets request is up to $70,000 in funding. So I know I mentioned $90,000 in funding, and that is including the optional innovation top-up. So with the optional innovation top-up, you can request a maximum of $90,000 per your business. So why should you apply for Great Streets? Great Streets will allow you to attract more customers. You can really improve your customer experience, improve your interior, exterior renovation, anything like that. You can be supported with purchasing point of sale and inventory management, hardware, software, and you can also work on growing your business further. So if I am just a standard retail business, not doing anything innovative, you can request up to $70,000 for your business. So the example for a business that might apply for General Great Streets is Studio X. This is a hair salon. They're proposing a project with capital improvements. They're adding new furniture, signage, and they may fulfill the Great Streets criteria. So they're requesting up to $70,000 for this portion of their project. Now, if Studio X wanted to go a bit further and do something more innovative, they can request an additional up to $20,000 if they are proposing an innovative concept. So this is completely optional. Businesses that are not doing anything innovative, don't want to do anything innovative, that's all right. You can just request for the up to $70,000. And the reason that I'm mentioning it's optional is if you were weighing that back and forth thinking, I could do something innovative. I have some ideas, but you're not sure if you want to apply for it. I say apply. push your business a little bit further, you can apply for it, and there's a completely different scoring criteria, budget, line items, everything that you have to submit for that. And if you score poorly in the optional innovation top-up category, it will not affect your ability to receive the general Great Streets amount. So I just received a notification that I'm blocking the screen, so I will quickly stop sharing and reshare it just to make sure I'm not blocking the screen. Thank you for that feedback.
They said it's coming, yeah, it's coming down the joint pipe.
Can everyone see it now?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that feedback. So for the optional innovation top-up, you do have to submit the additional itemized budget, answer specific questions. But again, if you score poorly in this section, it will not affect your ability to receive the first up to $70,000 in funding. So there's truly no harm in applying for that section if that is something you have any interest or hope to achieve. But if you do score well in that section, you can receive up to $90,000. So an example of an innovation would be building an additional space that functions differently from the original concept, but it still has to be connected to the overall project. I wouldn't apply for two different buildings, for example, that have no relationships to each other. It has to still be in relation to your original concept, expanding that further, perhaps, or a retail business that is applying for something that is going to improve their customer experience and attract customers in a way that they haven't been doing before. That is what I would think about with optional innovation top-up. So with the same studio hair salon that I just discussed in the last slide, Studio X is deciding to go after the innovation top-up to request that additional $20,000. And they're going to do this by expanding their venture into virtual reality. They're qualifying for this innovation top-up with a proposal to create a separate green space that is adding a designated space for virtual reality simulation. So there is that technology element. And they're also adding an additional revenue stream. They're training stylists on new techniques that has been globalized. They're adding job opportunities. They're telling us that just for this section of their project, they're having a tech specialist, a hair instructor. So you can see that this additional element of their project is very connected to their original request for their general capital improvements for their Great Streets site. And then they're going further by describing the exact budget that they need. They're answering specific application questions and showing new job opportunities just for this section of their application. Eligible uses of Great Streets. So 100% of the grant can go towards build out, exterior or interior renovations, any kind of facade improvements, any capital improvements, any purchase and installation of heavy manufacturing equipment. 100% of that should be covered under hard costs. Now, if you also want to do more soft cost type expenditures, you can do this, but you can only submit 35% of your grant towards the soft costs. So that could be, again, the point of sale inventory management, any kind of marketing, even hiring a temporary marketing consultant can be covered under that 35%. Purchase of installation of movable equipment and furniture, e-commerce sales systems, public safety equipment, any of those items, you can use up to 35% of your grant towards that. Items that immediately come to mind that are not eligible under Great Streets are using funding towards rent or using it towards payroll. Here's an example of a business that we awarded in the last few years, Thrive Hair Care Bar. And with the funding that we were able to provide them, you can see that they have completely transformed this corner of H Street. They have very clear signage and they were able to paint the exterior of their location. It looks very inviting and you know exactly what this business serves. And then they're also able to use that funding towards their interior. They have really modernized it, added a lot of furniture, and has really transformed their business into an anchor location and a place to be. So that was Great Streets. Emerging Retail is another grant program. And so this one is awarding up to $200,000 in total for grants. We are expecting to award around 10 grants with a maximum request of $40,000 per application. So that $40,000 comes under two funding models that I will describe in the next slide. So this is for businesses that are early on in their trajectory. They have maybe just started and have operated in a shared space. So an incubator, a pop-up stall, a short-term retail space, food halls, community-driven markets. So one example of this is Union Kitchen. A business operating within Union Kitchen may be able to qualify for emerging retail because they're operating inside an incubator. There are many other incubators in DC, so if you are operating inside any of those or any other short-term retail spaces, vacant spaces, pop-up stalls, anything like that or something similar, you may be able to qualify for emerging retail. And so our hope is we are awarding businesses that are really thinking about have a clear trajectory towards moving into a brick and mortar location. So if you are a business that's within one of these shared spaces, but does not want to eventually move towards that, this is probably not the right grant for you. This is for businesses that are already creating that plan to eventually work towards a brick and mortar location. This grant, unlike Great Streets, is required to submit a link to a 3 to 4 minute video about their business. So this is very broad. You can submit a video about anything that you feel that you weren't able to cover in your application. You can give us a tour of your location. You can introduce your team. You can really share the vision and your goals behind it and add that personal touch to your application. So the two models that I had mentioned are the primary applicant model and the sublease model. So if you're a business within an incubator, then you can request up to $20,000 in funding for your business. So again, if you're a business operating within a, say, Union Kitchen, you can request up to $20,000 for your business. The sublease model is for the incubator itself. So for example, if a Union Kitchen or another incubator were to apply for emerging retail, they would apply under the sublease model for themselves. So that business, the incubator themselves, could request up to $20,000 for themselves, plus $5,000 for every subleased applicant within their space. So again, taking the Union Kitchen example, they can request up to $20,000 for themselves, plus $5,000 for each applicant that is subleasing within them. So they choose up to 4 different businesses and they need to describe exactly who those applicants are, exactly who the vendors are who are subleasing within their space, and show an agreement of that sublease. And they can give them approximately $5,000 for each of those subleased businesses within their space. So for them, they can request up to $40,000 in funding. Eligible uses. So similar to Great Streets, 100% of the grant can go towards hard costs. So same build out, exterior, interior renovations, all of that is the same. Unlike Great Streets, 50% of the grant can go towards soft costs. So any of the soft costs I'd already mentioned in Great Streets are allowable within the 50% of the soft costs, but then emerging retail goes forward and expands that criteria as well. So emerging retail allows funding to go towards rent just for businesses that are moving into a vacant space. You can also use funding towards payroll for new employees that are hired during the period of performance. So the period of performance is 18 months following conditional award, which we anticipate will happen sometime in June, July. Financials for emerging retail. For businesses that are operating more than 1 year, businesses are required to submit recent profit and loss statements and 2025 tax returns. For businesses operating less than 1 year, you can submit your startup or pre-revenue budget, financial projections, including P&L 18-month cash flow forecast. And what we're really hoping to understand through your financials is an understanding of your business's financial position. Understanding if your business's current model is sustainable, and if the budget items requested by your business will have a large effect on the business and corridor as a result. And I'll talk about this a little bit further as well, but financials are playing a very large role in this year's grant selection process. I will tell you that. Locally made manufacturing. So this is a grant that focuses on manufacturing businesses in DC. So DMPED is awarding $1.5 million total in grant funds. The maximum request per application is $400,000 in funding. Now that's a very high amount of funding because some projects really are that big. But if you have a smaller project, really request exactly what your business needs. You do not need to request the full $400,000 if your business is not doing a $400,000 project. We are looking for businesses whose core operations align with manufacturing. Now, if you are doing mostly packaging, bottling, warehousing, printing, distribution, that's not going to be considered manufacturing on itself. If you're doing that in addition to manufacturing processes, that's okay. But we're looking for core operations that align with manufacturing. And you can see more details on the codes for that in the RFA as well. So if you're manufacturing items like beauty products, baby food, coffee, furniture, equipment, textiles, packaged food, and many other things, you may be eligible for this grant program. But you need to also have a retail component in your space. So if you are a coffee roastery and that's your manufacturing process, you must also sell coffee at your site or another retail product that you're manufacturing at your site. But 51% of your revenue must be derived from your manufacturing processes. Another applicant that might be able to apply for locally made, besides manufacturers themselves, are incubators and multi-tenant buildings that house manufacturers and support manufacturers. Also, businesses that have received funding from locally made in the last 5 years are not eligible to apply. So that is anything from 2021 and beyond, you are not eligible to apply for this round of locally made. So the eligible uses are exactly the same as Grade Street. So the same 100% of the grant can go towards hard costs, build out, and then 35% of the grant can go towards soft costs. So again, marketing, public safety, smaller furniture, anything like that. Here's an example of a locally made recipient that we have awarded in the past, Lost Generation Brewery. So before, you can see that they had more space and less tanks, but they were able to add a lot more efficient tanks to their space. And same with organizing their space a bit better, having better storage and capabilities, getting better cans and storage as well. They were able to use the funding towards that and really expand their production capacity. So Lost Generation, just using that same example, they are a brewery that sells their beer on site. So that would be their retail component. Budget. So budget is very important to an application, and I'm just going to provide some brief suggestions on how to know that you're submitting the best budget possible. So there are 3 key things that I recommend to make sure you're doing when submitting your budget. Making sure your expenses are reasonable. Don't submit items that you don't need that are not going to improve your business. We can really tell when applicants are just trying to hit the maximum request amount, but don't actually need any of that to improve their business. So only apply for what you need that will actually improve your business. Now, just because I'm saying that, don't not apply for essential items because you're trying to show a lower amount. Truly just apply for what your business needs and break that down into very clear itemized categories. So exterior lighting, you can describe what exterior lighting you're choosing, how that's going to affect your business, how that's going to affect your corridor, some of the decision making behind it, but justify it. We want to know why you need this item and how this is going to impact your business. One of the best strategies is to make sure you're connecting every budget item to the greater goals of the business and corridor improvement. Now, if you are just saying items like an HVAC, for example, that would be considered an eligible item, but it's harder to convey the impact that that has on the business or on the greater corridor improvement. So we're really looking to see businesses that are having items that show either that direct impact on the corridor or that direct impact on business growth. When you propose a project, you will have to really think about all of the different items that you are looking to improve upon for your business in a very cohesive and concise way. So I would think about a goal that your business has for the next 18 months on what you want to accomplish. For example, if you want to build out the exterior of your building or the first floor of your building, or you're working towards a certain concept, some sort of mission, goal, and try to make everything align with that. So creating a very specific budget for what you hope to accomplish in those 18 months, answering questions based on that. Having milestones, very clear milestones that you hope to accomplish within those 18 months, making sure it's a very clear-cut project. Now, if you are just submitting your operational budget of your electric bill or anything like that, we are not looking for operational costs. We're not just looking to reimburse you for rent or any operational reoccurring expenses. We are looking for your business to be able to grow and propose a project that is going to take your business to that next level. And so really, really make it a very concise project with a clear vision of how you are going to move both your business forward and propel DC forward and your corridor forward in a completely new way. Financials. So these are the financials that are required for Great Streets and Locally Made. So financials, again, are a very, very important aspect of this year in particular's grant review process. We are only looking to support businesses that are going to survive and thrive for a very long time. I would really think about if the money that would be provided from our grant program is enough to allow your business to be taken to the next level and thrive and be sustained with or without our help. So we want to really support businesses that are already showing that sustainability, already showing that success. And the small amount of grant funds that we may be able to provide should really be able to start a business on a great trajectory and take them forward and enhance DC as a whole. So in order to do this and for us to be sure of your sustainability, we do look through your financial documents in detail. So every business is required to submit their profit and loss statement if they're applying for Great Streets or Locally Made, and you need to submit at least one of the following documents for the statement of financial position. So you can submit any of them though. So organizational budget you can submit a cash flow statement, a balance sheet, any sort of letter submitted to the IRS, or any audited financial statements from the last 3 years. You also will need to show your current gross profit margin, net profit margin, and any sort of existing debt obligations that you have and your ability to service that debt. So again, from all of the financials, we want to get an understanding of your business's financial position, seeing if your current model is sustainable, and if the budget items that you are requesting will also be affecting your business and the corridor as a big result. So that's an overview of the 3 grant programs: Emerging Retail, Great Streets, and Locally Made. All 3 of the programs will undergo a few different phases after you submit your application. So the first phase will occur, and it's called pre-screening. So some of the main criteria we look at to check if you're eligible for this program is location eligibility. So again, that map I showed you at the very beginning of our presentation, making sure that you're eligible on that map is critical to receiving this fund, because again, this is legislated locations, and if you are not within those legislated locations, then you are not going to be able to receive funding from this program. Site control. So if you have a lease or deed, you are all set across all 3 grant programs, as long as you have an active lease. Now, if you have a letter of intent and you're applying for Locally Made and Emerging Retail, that's okay. In the past, for Great Streets, we have only allowed lease or deed. This year, for the first time, we're offering a bit more flexibility with that. We are allowing businesses that are moving into a vacant space that has been vacant for over a year to submit an LOI just for Great Streets. And by the time of conditional award, you will have to submit a lease or a deed at that time. How to show that your business has been vacant for a year, if you are interested in that LOI for Great Streets, you can submit a commercial listing record, screenshots with timestamps and URLs. Any relevant public records corroborating the vacancy records are allowable if you want to submit that LOI for Great Streets at this time. Mandatory minimum of jobs. So 2 jobs are required to be hired during the performance period. So again, that's 18 months after conditional award for Great Streets and Locally Made. For Emerging Retail, since we understand that these are businesses that are a bit earlier on in their trajectory, you can only you can hire a minimum of 1 job. So I'm saying mandatory minimum because it truly is a minimum. This is just to get your foot in the door to apply for any of these programs. Ideally, we would like to see many more jobs hired than the ones that are listed in the mandatory minimums. But for us to even receive your applications, you have to hit the 1 for ERI and 2 for Great Streets and Locally Made. Active business license. So all of the grant programs request an active business license, but Emerging Retail, again, since this is a bit early on in their grant process, you have until conditional award to submit your business license. Since Great Streets and Locally Made are bigger grants for businesses that are further along, you have to submit your business license at the time of submission of your application. And if you don't submit it at that time, you will be immediately denied. Annual revenue. So if you are under 3 million for Great Streets on average for the last 3 years, you are eligible to apply. And so again, that's an average. So if last year you made 4 million for Great Streets and in previous years you only made 1 million, then you are still eligible to apply for Great Streets. For Emerging Retail, if you're applying under the primary applicant category, then again, so that's for businesses that are within incubators, you will have to have the 3-year average of $500,000 or less. Now, if you are applying under Emerging Retail, but as the incubator themselves, so that would be called the sublease category, there is no annual revenue limit. So you can make way more than that and be totally fine. For Locally Made, there is no annual revenue limit. So any amount of money that you make, you are set for Locally Made. And for every respective grant that you're applying for, you cannot have received funding from that grant in the last 5 years. So if you've received Emerging Retail in the last 5 years, you cannot apply for Emerging Retail again this year. If you've received Emerging Retail or Great Streets in the last 5 years, you cannot apply for Great Streets this year. And if you've received locally made in the last 5 years, you cannot receive locally made this year. For emerging retail, you are required to submit a 3 to 4 minute video. But for locally made, we allow you to submit a 3 to 4 minute video, but it's not required at all. So if you are in locally made and you might have a bit more of a complex manufacturing process, or you just want to add that additional personal touch or add that extra clarity to your application, I would recommend submitting that video, but it's optional, so it won't affect your scoring process at all. Document check. So we will check through all of the documents that you submit during the pre-screening phase. So one thing that sometimes happens is that there's a lot of templates out there, and if you're downloading all of your templates, make sure that you're keeping it in a separate folder and you're uploading the correct documents into the correct attachment. That's something that we see year after year with the wrong documents being submitted into the wrong place, or the templates being submitted and it is just completely empty. There's no information filled out, and that's a really unfortunate way of not moving through the pre-screening process. If you have those documents but just did not submit the right ones or submitted empty ones. Another thing is if you are creating all of your documents and filling it out, make sure every single section of the document is filled out. Sometimes we receive leases without signatures, for example. So make sure that every part of your document is filled out and it's active. You're not submitting a business license that has expired or a lease that is expired. Make sure your documents are up to date and completely filled out and are submitted into the right categories and on time. Now, if you've moved past the pre-screening process, our team will notify you at that phase that you've moved past the pre-screening or you're denied at pre-screening. And for the ones that have moved forward in this process, you will now reach a process called competitive technical review. So businesses at this stage will be reviewed and scored on all of this criteria. So business and project overview. So that's really getting a sense of what your business does, an overview of that project. So again, as I mentioned, a very specific project with certain goals that you're hoping to achieve in the next 18 months, specific milestone, specific budget, all for that. So we want to get a sense of the clarity of your project, exactly what you're doing and how you're going to be doing it in that phase. Financial viability. So again, very important. It's for us to get a sense of, is your business able to execute on this project? Do you have the financial sustainability to stay in business for several years with and without our funding? Communicating that in this section is important as well. One of our major goals is job creation. So we are looking for businesses that hit the mandatory minimums and are actually going way above that. Economic benefits. So our goal of providing these grant funds are to provide a return of investment to the neighborhoods, to the corridors, and really boost the economic activity in these places. So for businesses that are showing us that they have clear strategies on how their business and their project is going to propel the economic activity of their corridor, that is something that would really align with the goals of our program. Corridor impact. We are looking for businesses that have a good understanding of their corridor. So if the business is working really closely with other businesses, other organizations in their area, they have a good understanding of the needs of the area, and is showing that their business is filling an important gap, that is excellent. And we love to see that in this category as well. So really think about how all of your business is aligning with these different categories and areas. Business growth plan. So this is really considering how your business is propelling yourself forward. So again, we're not looking for businesses that are struggling to survive and make it past even the second year. We're looking for businesses that are already doing well and with the funding that we provide are able to grow further and further. So that could be franchising further. That could be improving their marketing strategy. There's many different ways a business can grow, and we want to hear about it in this part of the application. Post-award. Now, if you have moved past the pre-screening and the technical review phase and are one of the lucky few that is receiving an award, we are hoping, and that's completely fingers crossed, that conditional award notifications will go out in late June, July, that time period. Sometimes that timeline can be extended, so be prepared for the possibility of that. But at this point in time, we are hoping that it will happen in late June. So if you are selected for a conditional award, you will be requested to provide more documents at this phase. You will be receiving a grant agreement. So that grant agreement includes all of the different grant requirements. And in return for us providing this funding to the select businesses, the business will have to share regular reporting, and we will conduct site visits to make sure that everything the business applied for in the application is going according to plan. Document ready checklist. So all of the businesses will need to submit a series of documents. All of this is listed in the RFA and in the application and on the website. But we are looking for businesses to be sure to be in good standing with the Department of Licensing, DC Office of Tax and Revenue, DC Department of Employment Services, and the IRS as well. One thing that I will point out from this list, so you are required to submit 3 years of business tax returns. So if you are a completely new business and you have not received business tax returns for the last 3 years, every year that you do not have, you can submit personal tax returns in lieu of that. So if you are a business that has only in business for 2 years, you can submit 2 years of business tax returns and 1 year of personal tax returns. Project readiness checklist. Think strategically about the proposed project and the grant funding request. Are you confident in what the funding priorities are? Have you read through the NOFA and RFA in great detail? Did you propose a specific project with a scope that aligns with the grant program? Really, really make sure that you are comfortable with the RFA, you're familiar with it, you've read it back and forth, you have a good understanding of the funding priorities of the mayor, of the deputy mayor, of this program, and how your business is going to align with that and execute on our own priorities. Understanding the scope of the proposed project. Did you talk in consistent detail and clarity about the timeline, costs, project management, potential impact to business, corridor, and community? And did you make sure that the work can be completed in the next 18 months of award? Double check all of that. Are you familiar with how to create a project budget? And again, are you connecting every single budget item with a clear justification and showing how this is going to improve your business and the corridor as a result? And if you are not familiar with those things, that is okay. You can always reach out for help to someone who is familiar with one of those things. If you have a friend, if you have another business partner who is familiar with that, reach out to them for help. We also have external support that is here to provide you with any kind of support that you need. There are many technical assistance providers in the area. Reach out to your main streets, reach out to your cultural affair offices, reach out to the nonprofit groups like SB Works that all provide technical assistance. One thing that I will say is that while all of these organizations exist and provide a lot of support to businesses like yours, they do reach capacity very quickly. So if you find that you're in a situation where you might need assistance, don't reach out to them 2 days before submission. Reach out to them now. It's already getting pretty far into the application process. I'm hoping that most of you have already started working on your application at this point in time. But if you need any further support, reach out now to the technical assistance providers. So that is it for today's presentation. If you have any questions, we are using a new submittable application this year. So this is different from the portal that we've used in previous years. We've used GrantVantage, but we heard feedback from businesses that GrantVantage wasn't the most user-friendly. So we heard that feedback and we've switched to a new portal called Submittable that I hope is more user-friendly, but because it's our first year using it, if you have any issues, glitches, concerns, reach out to demped.grants@dc.gov. Now, again, because this is such a new platform, I would strongly encourage you to submit a few days before the deadline. So the deadline's January 16th. You should really be submitting by January 13th. And that really ensures that if something happens, if the application glitches right around the time of submission, you still have that grace period. Now, if you have programmatic questions, you're not sure if your business is eligible, or you have any specific questions about the RFA, you can reach out to the program team, which is great.streets@dc.gov. Now, if you have any questions and you want to reach out to me specifically, my name is Kavya and my email address is kavya.balaji@dc.gov. Thank you so much. Today, we will not be taking any questions because of lack of time. However, we will be doing a very specific Q&A session dedicated just to all of the businesses that have any questions on Friday in Adams Morgan. So if you want to register for that session, look at the link that I shared with you all in that email, and you can sign up for that session at that time. I'll be posting the PowerPoint and the video of today's session online on our website today. But thank you so much for attending our session, and we hope that you will apply for this program, and wishing you all the best of luck.